and you are an entrepreneur and you've worked in a lot of NGOs back in India before moving to US. So do you think that really helps in when you're drafting your SOP for applying to Ivy League universities?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and I think this is such a great question because people often refrain from giving a very direct answer to it. When I feel in my and I mentored a lot of students, and I always feel this like the students who do know how to create this like non-profit experience into like a very, I wouldn't say like a sellable story, but ultimately, yeah, like on your SOP, it's a game of like how well can you like craft a story that someone wants to read, like a story that is compelling enough for them to like say that okay, this person has done something that differentiates them from the kind of degree that they have or the kind of marks that they have or GPAs and stuff. And I never did that with any intention I had about my masters. I was just genuinely enjoying all of that. Like my involvement with ISEC, actually it's not exactly an NGO, but it is a not-for-profit organization, so I never got paid for that like 3 years of my time at ISEC and stuff. So but then ultimately, yeah, all the I feel all the qualitative aspects of it that I gathered, no, like leadership skills, empathy, learning about your world beyond like what you see through the lens of education. So all the problems and stuff. We worked a lot on United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So all of that experience gave me this perspective that I wouldn't have gotten without doing all of that. So I think the only suggestion I would have for students is like make sure that you are able to like, basically explain all of this experience and details on your SOP. Like tell them on your SOP why you are different than the other students who are basically applying. And I think like, yeah, that might have played a huge role because for Columbia University, I think my entrepreneurship experience may have counted. And again, like this is just my guess, but we did have a WhatsApp group of students who were admitted that year, and a lot of them were from entrepreneurial backgrounds. So then that kind of did make me wonder at that time that maybe like that is something that they value in the candidates, because a few
Okay.
of them were already running their businesses and coming from like very rich like business background, that they have upscaled a startup or they have been doing something in the field of not for profits or stuff. So I think maybe like, yeah, the Ivy League universities do value that kind of experience.
Okay, yeah, I agree. That's great. So, moving on, when you first landed in US, like what was your first impression, and what were the challenges and situations that you have faced in your first initial days?
So I think this is so funny because my challenges I think would be very individual and different from others. Because what happened was Air India's flight got delayed by more than 3 hours from Delhi. And what happened ultimately was that I ended up missing my next connection flight from New York City to Raleigh. And that was such a full blown chaos. I mean, I was so stressed out. I was sleep deprived. But it was like, like there are two sides to the coin kind of a story. That while I was I mean, feeling so challenged in a new country and you don't know anything about like a new place. I mean, you can understand the language, but that's really it. Like, you don't know anything else. But it was so funny because I got a hotel stay from Air India for that day in like my first day in US. And it's funny because I was manifesting New York somehow in every possible way at that time. I was like, I'm going to be crossing from New York and I won't get to see it. And I wouldn't even have the money to come here for a few months. Like a trip to New York would have cost like at least like I was calculating all of that in Indian currency. That would be like at least like 30,000-40,000 rupees on the minimum, the bare minimum side. So then like in retrospect I felt that universe kind of heard me, that I got like 1 day of free stay here in New York. And it was near the New Jersey airport, the Newark airport. But so coming here, like, so my first reaction, that was like my first big reaction after like all the chaos of like the missed flight and like arranging for the accommodation, because you have to go and pester them that hey, like what am I getting, like. So all of that took around I think 3-4 hours. I don't remember that very accurately, but yeah, after putting my bags in the hotel, and then I took a cab to come to New York City. So when you enter from New Jersey to New York, you kind of see the whole skyline of New York City. And that is the one moment that I will never ever forget. Like that was my, that big, American dream moment, that, oh my God, I have landed in like New York City and I'm getting to see this for one day. So that was a very beautiful and a very meaningful experience for me. I spent the entire day roaming around Times Square and going to Brooklyn Bridge. I even like lied down there on the grass for some time because I was very tired and sleep deprived. I really hadn't slept in I think 40 plus hours at that time. So it was a very crazy memory that I think God let me build on my first day itself. And then like going back was a little challenging. Like coming to some practical challenges now, I realized that the baggage mishandling in US was more common than I could have even imagined. So they lost my bags like after everything, after all the chaos. Like first of all, I had to fight with them at the Newark airport for the three checked-in bags, because I mean I don't know if Air India is still doing this, but back then Air India was giving you three pieces of bags instead of two if you were a student. But
Yeah.
then it wouldn't have been a chaos, I guess, if I had flight on the same day, because it was the next day and Air India had given this receipt to me. They were not able to understand what that receipt is. So they were incredibly rude about like, checking in even the second checked bag. So I had to fight with them for like two bags. So they were like that, we don't allow anything beyond the first piece. So you have to pay for the second piece also. And I was like, I am not. Like I have booked, my flight ticket was booked from Air India from like Delhi to Raleigh. So everything should have been covered. So they agreed ultimately. And but it was like so much of like, I mean, verbal back and forth with them, that like I had to make them listen to me, because in my perspective, I would have had to pay more than like 12,000 or 14,000 rupees
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I hadn't like fought with them over it.
And yeah, and especially I feel like if it's a direct flight and then you have another flight after that to different city, they always do that. I think it happened with me as well. When I was coming as a student for the first time, I flew from Delhi to Chicago, and
Okay.
at the Delhi airport itself, when I was checking my bags, they were like, "You can only take two bags." I was like, "I'm a student. I'm going for the first time. Three bags are allowed." And it took 30 minutes to realize this. There was a check-in line before, like behind me, and they were like, there was a lot of back and forth with them, and then they finally agreed, and they're like, no, you had to pay $200 to check in this bag. I'm like, I'm not paying $200, it's allowed and it's written in the policy as well. So then but it was crazy.
It was, yeah. And now I feel, as you kind of live in a place, your expectations are also aligned correctly. So then over the course, I realized that that's how it is here. Like people should be like listening to rules, and it's not that they are not, but people here have a very, I wouldn't say rigid way, but a very random way of working. So if it's your lucky day and you're with the right person, they
Yeah.
might be more lenient with you than someone else. But on your worst day, like for a Frontier airline plane, I and my friend were coming back from Atlanta to Raleigh, and we have even paid like $50 for just carrying like 800 extra grams of weight. Because that girl there who was at the counter was the rudest, I think, airline employee I've ever seen. Like she would have abused us, like thrown stuff at us. Like she could have done anything. We were like, we practically were like, we gave this like, quick glance at each other, and we were like, this battle is not worth it. Let's just like pay what she's asking us to and like get out of here.
Yeah, we all have been in situations like that, I know. Okay. So I saw in your videos that you also worked as a part-time student while you were pursuing your masters. So could you tell us a little about managing time, like while you're working part-time, and since you are doing all the household chores yourself here, and then you have a master's degree and all the assignments and studies. So can you elaborate a little on that as to how one can manage time and how you did that?
Yeah. Okay, I have to think a little, because so I remember, so the hardest for me was the first semester, because it was like I mean, practically like a blue collar job where you have to be standing all the time. It was only manual labor, like doing Starbucks. I think that for me was the most challenging of like, so in total I did like a four, or I mean I did four different jobs across like the span of like 2 years, 1.5 years. So I think with Starbucks, what I had to learn was that a very clear segregation. I mean, knowing beforehand, it sounds more complicated, I guess, if I explain it, but I kind of got the hang of it. So, like, sort of pre-planning the week. I mean, on a weekend, I would know that, like, what the next few days are going to look like for me. I would know my class schedule. And I think, like, knowing that really helps. So, in my mind now, I'm looking back at it and wondering, wow, that was complicated. But back then, I think the fact that you had your timetable planned, like you knew that these are your classes and this much is like your Starbucks shifts. So then, like, you would only have the remaining time out of it, that okay, this is your time. So knowing that you have very limited time, no, I think playing on that psychology kind of helps you, like it keeps you in this like survival mode, or obviously, but that was kind of like the need of the hour. Like, you know that okay, you have limited time and you are here by yourself. And I wouldn't even say that it's always fun and games. Like, at times it did get really challenging.
Mm.
Like, I used to feel so depressed sometimes coming back because I would have no energy to even get up from my room, like, and come back to the kitchen to cook something after like doing, like, for example, like a 9 hour Starbucks shift. And I would often pick those kind of long 8, 9 hour shifts on Sundays to like make some extra like hours. So we were allowed 20 hours, and I would often do like 19.5, 19.8. So in those kind of weeks, it just got really challenging. I think what helps you in those moments is like just reminding yourself of the bigger picture, and like keeping that bigger picture in mind with like like very small actionable items, that what do I need to get done today. So if I have gotten that done, then like I'll be able to do that tomorrow as well. So it's kind of like breaking it down, and I think I learned this psychology, and I tried to adapt this in other areas that as well, and that helped me, just like breaking it down into like several small steps instead of like wondering like, wow, like this is overwhelming, that now my life is that I have to go do this every day. So
Okay.
that psychology, I think, kind of helped me, maybe, like, yeah, so ultimately, yeah, rewiring my brain to see that no, I can do this in 24 hours.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, that was great. So यहाँ पे मास्टर्स का एक्सपीरियंस वाइल इंडिया में एजुकेशन लाइक डिग्री करना हाउ डिफरेंट इज दैट?
So, I mean, I did my undergrad there, and so I don't know a lot about masters, like how MBA programs and stuff there are. But like between like my undergrad in India and my masters in US, the biggest difference that I saw is the kind of I feel autonomy and freedom that the professors here have. So, and I think nobody really told me that. So that was a very big change for me, that in India everything has to run according to the way university has described it, like, or prescribed it for students, that like these are your classes, this is your very strict timetable. And then like it was a given that no, every subject would have like an examination, every subject more or less would have like highly theoretical classes, so the practical implementations of it were not as I think fiercely like implemented. Like, they should have been there, but like we never really did that. Meanwhile, in US, I felt that every professor is like making like kind of like their own rules, and I thought that was really cool. Like, they have the power to choose how their subject has to go. So if like there were subjects that had like no exams at all, and that was really fun, and then like other subjects professors are doing quizzes like every single week. So I mean, yeah, it's not like it's entirely different in India, but I felt that, yeah, the practical aspects, like how much I could learn here doing stuff practically, I mean, there were some core subjects like of MBA school and stuff that I had taken, where the kind of project participation that I had in respect to like the teammates, or the kind of diversity there was on the projects, that was really fun and challenging. Like, I got to work with people from like MBA school is only where I kind of got that, because the other like like technical schools, they have like as much of Indian students as you would kind of find in India. So I didn't find that much diversity in those classes, but it was still fun. But yes, the MBA school courses, I think, were they aligned with my skill sets a lot. And then seeing that kind of like a new structure of like how cool it is, like how professors get to like design every bit of their curriculum, and they're like, well, this is how I have planned to do this semester, this subject this semester. So I never really felt that the professors in India had that kind of like a power or authority to like decide about their subjects. I mean, that was like a new change for me.
Okay, nice. And what you say like your biggest support system here in US was?
It's I think it's 100% my friends. I have been very blessed in like that one regard where the first semester you're going through a lot. I feel what happens is even your closest friends from like your previous stages of life, they don't understand you the way they used to, and like nobody is to be blamed here, but like such is life, I guess. Like that you're living in a different part of the world now, first of all. So you're also like outgrowing people, and people are outgrowing you. So amidst all of that loneliness, I feel the people around you, who are kind of in the same boat as you, whose struggles are similar, who get it that like, what telling someone on a call, like be it your parents or your old friends that, hey, I had a very rough day, like, I had like a 9 hour Starbucks shift and I have no energy. So that like in comparison to like, your friends right there who you can like, chill with and like rant with a little bit about the day or about some like, hard, like very rude customers that came or something. I think that initially I remember was like my biggest support system that I found is like bunch of people, and like a few of them were actually from my own state, Madhya Pradesh, which was a big deal because you find like, people from Maharashtra and like Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, bigger cities. I was so surprised. I was like, I found like not one or two, but like three people who were from MP. So we had like this really nice group of like five people, and we were really each other's like biggest support system through like thick and thin, through like every random stuff that's happening. And that really led me through like some of my darkest and most challenging times that I have faced here in US.
Yeah. Okay. Um, and did you face any challenges like landing your first job in US after completing your master's?
My first job. So, I mean, I faced that challenge in actually applying to the internships. And what happened is that my internship got converted into a full-time role.
Okay.
So, if I'm being honest with you, if my internship hadn't converted, I don't even know what I would have done, because I did apply to more than I think 700 or something places. The I mean, economy back then was also so bad that I never even heard back from like most of them. Like I wish I could even say that I got rejected from them, but I just never even heard back. Like if you must be aware, right? Like what these companies are doing, they just keep posting like ghost openings. Like they would like post that job, take it down, post that same job again in a few days, and you would see like, okay, a new job has popped up on LinkedIn, and then you would see that, okay, you applied to this job like 3 months ago, and like you never got a rejection from them, and it's still open. So
Yeah.
that I was stuck in that vicious loop where all of a sudden, even though they had already said a no, but my company had this opening in a different department altogether. So it was not related to, so it was not like a direct conversion that like I was in the same team or stuff. My boss had said a very clear no, and it was also the budgetary reasons, just like any other company. So I wrapped my internship up around the same time when my master's was ending. And then out of nowhere, my boss messaged me that, hey, someone from the company has quit their position and they were a project manager. So there is this new position that needs to be filled ASAP. So go apply. And she used to hype me up a lot. Like she was such an amazing boss and a leader to have. So that's how I applied, and then like I interviewed and stuff, and they liked what I was doing in the company in my previous intern role. And that was one of my moments, like if I'm being honest with you, where I learned that your luck has to support you in the right moments. Like I don't know, you cannot take too much credit there in like, in ways where like, it was so difficult and challenging. I was not hearing back from any company I was applying to, and some of them I was so aligned like with their job descriptions. I was like, how on earth can I not hear back from them for an interview? I mean, so there I learned that power of, like your luck supporting you right where you needed the most. I mean, it was after a really terrible luck of it. मैं ऐसा बोलूँ ना, कुछ अच्छा हो ही नहीं रहा था उस टाइम पे. There was a death in my family. उसके पहले I was genuinely depressed, like applying all the time. And then when I least expected it, I got this. I was like, thank you so much. I mean, like I was hoping to find a job in New York at the time, which did not happen. But then in retrospect, I was like that if I hadn't gotten this job, I don't know what I would have done.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's a little challenging for Especially like when the clock is ticking on you after you graduate, you have 90 days
Yeah,
to land a
man.
job. Yeah, that's really stressed. Moving forward, how has living in the US affected your personal and professional growth? Do you think it was all worth it?
It I think it depends on how you're looking at it. It professionally, yes, I would say the person that I am today professionally, and what kind of money you are making does impact your life a lot in terms of the decisions that you're able to make, in terms of what you can do for your family, even in terms of what you can do for yourself. So ROI wise, US is a great option. On the personal front, though, it kind of also leaves you feeling very devastated. You're far away from your family, and every day you wake up is a realization that you're far, far away from them. That, like, if they need you right away, you wouldn't be able to be there for them immediately. And I feel it is worth it in a way that life only goes on, and so if you can like learn that certain degree of detachment needed to live this life, then it is amazing. It is worth it. It is like everything that you can even dream of, I guess, like, unlocking your potential, doing things that you cannot like do in India, the kind of freedom that you have. But there are downsides that it gets very lonely. You have to rely so much on your friends because your family is so far away. So that kind of always, like, I am still in that like floating boat of thoughts of like wondering, like, can I do this forever? Like, I'm not sure if it's this lonely. And then I would definitely reach a point where there are only so many professional goals that you can achieve, and then you would still need your family. But then I also see people who tell me that they thought the exact same way and then they decided to stay anyway. So I don't know. I feel it is definitely worth it if you want to, like, challenge yourself and like achieve something that you dreamt of and stuff. But like, be assured that it's going to get challenging. It's going to get like dark and lonely, and there is like no escaping the bad parts either.
Okay. So, what advice would you give to someone who is like thinking now to come to US or planning come to US to study or maybe even directly work?
So my biggest advice would be to like for anyone would be to be aware of the job market and the financial condition. I mean, people often, I wouldn't say they're delusional, but people often believe that no, with me it will work out. But what I have realized there is that sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you have to be practically aware. Like, I know some incredibly talented people who are genuinely struggling to find a job. It's been like 9 months since they graduated. It's been like 4 months for some, like, who graduated like in December and May respectively. So if you're coming, like, have a backup, like plan B, that if my plan A doesn't work out, if my optimism doesn't work out, then what do I have to fall back on? So if it's a loan that you absolutely need a job to repay, then you can probably hold it off for another year and see and analyze like how the economy is unfolding. But then if it's like, honestly, if it's like spare money and it doesn't matter to you if you can't make it back right away, then like, yeah, like, you might as well come here and start your journey now instead of like a year from now. But like, any which way, I would say, and I say this like to every single student that I talk to, that like, please make a very well informed decision. Like, please be aware of the good parts and the bad parts, so that like nothing is a surprise for you. Like, it shouldn't surprise you that, oh my god, like 70% students haven't found the jobs yet who graduated in May. It shouldn't be that kind of stuff. It should be that, okay, I could be one of them, and what if I am?
Yes.
So just having like that, yeah,
Okay.
awareness.
And looking back, is there anything you wish you had known before moving to US?
Yeah, it would actually be just what I was describing right now. Like, sometimes you kind of feel that no, when I am there, no, I'll make it through. I mean, I'm sure there'll be a way. But sometimes I have learned that, like, life will often support you to give you the best, but oftentimes life will also not support you like that. You have to navigate whatever it is. Like, and there is no easy way to navigate that. Like, it's like every bit of like pain and like trauma that you have to go through emotionally, mentally. You have to make yourself so strong and resilient, and all these things, they just sound so simple while saying them out loud, but then dealing with them alone in a country with very limited support system, it can often get very challenging. And I just wish someone had told me just how difficult it gets. And the weird thing is, I know, like, I'm one of those people who posts their life on social media, and I think that's where the like everything goes wrong, that people only showcase the absolute best archives of their life on social media. So you're looking at that in India and you're like, wow, I want this life. what this person has. And if I have the same degree and the same, talent, I can go get that too. But like nobody talks about like how lonely and challenging it gets and stuff.
Okay, okay, yeah, I can understand. Okay, let's wrap up this episode with the last question. Like I saw in your video that you mentioned that you're a big Friends fan. So is it really the case that it motivated you to come to US and work in New York City?
Oh my God, I love that question because, and I definitely think it's a yes because I think growing up, no, whatever kind of content you're consuming kind of has an impact on shaping you as a person, and that those are like so shows like Friends. I watched Friends first, then I watched How I Met Your Mother. These are like your entry kits into like Hollywood shows that if like someone asks you to like watch like which first show should I watch first, it was Friends for me. Friends was I think the first ever English show that I watched. So it had a huge impact on me that wow, I love New York City. I like everything looks so cool and fascinating, and I want this one day. And that's I mean, yeah, that kind of like, yeah, traces back. I mean, yeah, you can like say that it had an impact on me in kind of like deciding that I want to go to US one day. I wouldn't say like I was a fangirl and it was entirely dependent on that, but yeah, it was definitely a factor. Like so many things that, in fact, like last night, my roommate was hosting a housewarming party. So she had that Friends themed game, like a Bollywood version of it, with like where Ross is doing all the questions. So she made like seven different categories, like picking questions and stuff. So I think like all of us, like kids born in that era have like that influence on us from TV shows like Friends or How I Met Your Mother, that they're often the benchmark. Like I would quote like Barney Stinson so much on my stories when I would come to New York City that, this is like, wait for it, legendary. So I think that is true, but what I have learned on the practical side of it is also to sometimes, that you have to learn to detach your fantasies from the reality, because you only come with this bubble that this is going to be so cool. And then you would be like, okay, it's going to be cool for like 10 minutes or 20 minutes, but then it's also going to be like everything that I have been saying, like, all the reality part of it. And that is often that never matches like what you have seen on TV shows, but it's a right balance, I guess. Like there is no harm to be a little in your TV show's bubble.
Nice, nice. Thank you so much, Arushi, for taking the time today. Arushi's story is a reminder that following your dreams can take you to unexpected yet amazing places. From her academic journey to building her career in New York City, she has shown us what it means to take that bold step towards your goal. I'm sure there's much more we could dive into, but if you enjoyed this episode, please stay connected for inspiring stories like these, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks for tuning in.